Welcome to the Ride This Out podcast, where we talk about how to improve your mental health and strengthen your connection to nature and your community, all through one simple solution: the bicycle. My name is Zach Golding, and I'm a licensed clinical social worker and mental health therapist. I'll be your host as we discuss the power of pedaling. All right, welcome into this week's session. I talk with Stephanie McMillan. Stephanie is from Phoenix, Arizona. She's a personalized strength and fitness and nutrition coach. She's also a nurse. She specializes in working with women mountain bike riders, helping them improve their strength, their confidence, and their nutrition, all those things related to increasing their performance on the mountain bike, or if they're just getting into it. So awesome conversation. I really enjoyed talking with her, and I really enjoy following her on Instagram. She has a lot of really cool content out there that can be beneficial for everyone. So enjoy this week's session. And again, thank you for sharing it. Thank you for listening, reviewing, liking, subscribing, all those things. I've had a couple people reach out to me personally saying that they really enjoyed listening, and it's encouraged them to get out and ride. So, which is awesome. That's the whole point of this podcast. So enjoy this week's discussion with Stephanie. No, you're awesome. Hey, I just wanted to ask just start off by having you introduce yourself, who you are, where you're from, kind of what you do, and just all the things.
Yeah, sure. So my name is Stephanie McMillan. I'm originally from Indiana, so I'm a Midwest girl, but I moved to the west side of the country 2014-ish. I started doing travel nursing. So I was out west for a couple years, finally settled down in Phoenix, Arizona, and I've been here since 2018. So after doing travel nursing and COVID, all that stuff hit, I was really burnt out on nursing. Was looking to find a way to further impact the community outside of the hospital and get people healthy and keep them out of the hospital. And so I started doing health coaching, and that has progressed to working with mountain bikers particularly. So that's where I'm at now, and really loving what I'm doing and finding it to be much more fulfilling and less stressful.
Yeah, that's when I came across your Instagram account, and I was like really intrigued by all the stuff that you have going on and just how it's kind of geared towards, the mountain bike community and specifically, female riders and stuff. How did you get into mountain biking? It sounds like you just kind of started that, not too long ago, right?
Yeah, well, I started riding in 2018, but I didn't really. I was kind of doing it as something to do with my boyfriend, something we could do together. He's been riding for a really long time. I was riding his hardtail large frame giant. I'm only 5'6", so it was a lot of extra bike for me, and I just wasn't really enjoying it. And then I got on a full suspension that was still not the right size, but much more enjoyable, and also had like a very eye-opening experience or mindset shift at Red Bull Rampage in October of 2021, and kind of just became obsessed with mountain biking after that. Really just dove in head first and started shifting my coaching from being more geared towards general health towards helping mountain bikers be healthier. I saw a lot of women that I realized they're not in the gym or working on strength and mobility to supplement their riding, and knowing how much it helps just generally with health, and also like, mind muscle connection, body positioning, balance, vision, hand-eye coordination, injury prevention. I was like, man, I got to get these ladies more confident with their decisions regarding their health off the bike as well.
No, I love it. And I think a lot of that, confidence, right? It just builds more confidence, and then you're just able to enjoy the ride a lot more. Tell me more about this Red Bull Rampage thing. Did you like go to an event or just watch it on YouTube or something? Or what was it that really roped you in?
Well, I went to the event, and I guess it wasn't necessarily the event itself. Obviously that was awesome, but you don't see people jumping off of a huge cliff and think I could do that. It was more that I was at the like old site with a couple of friends after the event, and everybody else was jumping, and I saw one of the girls that I had, had kind of gone with. Our group had kind of all come from Phoenix and gone up somewhat together, and I looked at my boyfriend and I was like, wow, she's so good. And he said, that's Katie. And I was like, Katie that I know? And he said, yeah. And I was like, oh, wow, sorry, I'm never going to be as cool as Katie. And he just looked at me and goes, well, not with that attitude, and just rode off. And I was like, oh my God, he's right. I could do that. Like, obviously I can't jump off of a cliff, but she's just going down like a jump line. Like, there's no reason I can't do that. So that's where that mindset shift came from. And at the same time, I had a ride that I really enjoyed and had like fun on. And I was like, okay, this can kind of somewhat also replace. I was in the bodybuilding world before I found mountain biking too. And bodybuilding for me was a very challenging sport mindset wise to be in. And I was looking for something to replace that because there were other aspects of bodybuilding that didn't jive well with my lifestyle. So once I realized that mountain biking could kind of fill that gap too, it was just everything kind of came full circle, and I genuinely became so enthralled with the whole sport and the community and everything about it.
I love it. So you're down in Phoenix, you say then?
Yes.
I've never ridden in Phoenix. How do you ride when it's 120 degrees down there, when it's so hot?
So you either ride very, very early in the morning, you ride at night with lights. Some people still ride during the day. I call that intense heat training. I mean, you have to be very careful doing that, and you have to know what you're doing. And it's not, you don't see a lot of people on the trails in the summer. It's definitely more of our off season.
Yeah. Well, and I assume too the winter time is pretty prime down there to ride, right?
Well, it's funny. I say it's our off season, but it's kind of both. Some people it is their on season because the days are a lot longer. So you can ride like after work and into the evening a lot easier, but it's still pretty hot. So I prefer to ride in the winter because the days are chill and it doesn't start getting warm until, mid afternoon. And even when it does, it's still tolerable.
Yeah. Yeah. So you did this travel nursing stuff for a while, and I'm sure that was just insane with all the COVID things, right? Like, tell me about that experience.
Oh, yeah, I didn't travel a lot during COVID. I was only at three different facilities during that time. And it was just kind of chaos. I mean, Phoenix was a bit of a hot spot, so definitely a lot of burnout, a lot of stress, a lot of bringing work home with me, a lot of just frustration. So was very happy to step further away from that role. I mean, I still do travel nursing or take nursing assignments about, I'd say on average, like once a year. And I have a PRN position actually back in Indiana. So I go home every 12 weeks or so and work like a couple shifts just to keep keep my nursing license active.
Oh, right on. So I would like during that whole time, right? Like, and even just the stresses of just your general day-to-day work. Do you use mountain biking as an outlet? Were you using it then or not really? Or what were you kind of doing to kind of self-care and get through that?
I wish I would have found my love for mountain biking before or during COVID. By the time I became really obsessed with it in 2021, obviously COVID was still around, but I had already stepped away from working in the hospital setting, especially as quite as often. If I was doing it, it was infrequent. So I didn't have the opportunity to use mountain biking as an outlet during that time, but it certainly is one. Unfortunately, I had to like switch to, I was in the gym as long as I could and then home workouts, which definitely still doable, but I don't personally enjoy as much. So it was a definitely hard time mentally. And wish I had mountain biking during that time. Absolutely.
Yeah, no, and I think that whole pandemic with everyone went through, it caused us to kind of shift gears in a way, right? Just kind of rethink a lot of the things that we're doing and how we cope with stuff and what we're doing for our careers and how we can just kind of focus on other stuff. So that I think it's awesome that you kind of pivoted and, found your love for mountain biking, and then here you are doing the health coaching stuff for that. So, as you're doing this thing now with the health coaching, do you get out and ride with your clients? Do you like just teach them? Like, walk me through like a day-to-day thing, like what you do with your clients.
Sure, yeah. A lot of my clients are actually not local to me because I do most of my training online. If I'm getting out and riding with a client, it's usually just for fun. I'm not a mountain biking coach. I'm not like PMBA certified or anything like that. So it would just be a social ride. Obviously, can give like some general pointers, but I'm not, again, not a mountain biking coach. So my coaching is geared more towards nutrition and eating enough to fuel your ride so that you feel good not only during but after your ride. I think we all can relate to that feeling of going on a ride and then being literally like melted into the couch the rest of the day because you're so exhausted and you need to recover from that ride. So helping people learn how to prevent that so they can mountain bike and still enjoy the rest of their life. And then also strength training to improve endurance and speed, reaction time, balance, those types of things, and a lot of education. I've always really enjoyed educating people, and I think that that kind of comes from my own need to know why I'm doing something. Don't know what it is, but I'm way more likely to do something if I know why it's impactful or why I should be doing it versus somebody just telling me to do it. So, focus a lot on education as well.
I love that. And that's what I appreciate about like all the info that you put out on your Instagram page. That's what I love about it. I mean, you're always kind of giving tips about nutrition and strength training and all sorts of different stuff. So super cool what you're doing.
Thank you. Yeah, I actually give a lot of info on my Instagram. I think the difference between, you know, coaching and getting coaching in a structured setting is that the information's laid out a little bit more personalized for you, helping you decide which things to implement, which things make more sense to implement with your lifestyle and how to go about implementing them, not just like understanding the concept itself. So, that's my goal with Instagram is just educate, and then if somebody becomes a client, then they get the full package of, how do I make this work with my lifestyle of all these pieces, how do I put them together.
Yeah, super cool. What are some of like the main, questions or concerns that a lot of your clients have that you try to address or that just help them through?
I'd say the most common, um, maybe not a concern but issue that people come to me with is wanting more endurance or getting up hills, climbing, and I'm sorry, what you said, what are some things I tell them to do?
Yeah, just kind of like what they're going through. And then, I mean, you don't have to give all of your secrets out, during this session, but just some basic tips, like some of the things that have really helped them and help them improve their wellness.
Yeah, for sure. So as far as improving endurance, obviously more time on the bike is going to be king. That's You can't really compare to getting more time on the bike, but we all know that that doesn't always mesh well with your lifestyle. You don't always have time to get all the way to a trail. So implementing even just some mobility or strength work into your routine at least twice a week, 2 days a week is enough to see benefits from that. Um, the data shows that how often you train and the progress that you see is correlated. So the more you train, the more benefit you're going to see or crossover you're going to see. But that 2 day a week mark is kind of that starting point where you really will start to see benefits. And I think a lot of people feel overwhelmed when they're trying to implement, especially strength training or gym stuff or something new like that into their lifestyle. And they think they have to go, balls to the walls and do it every day. And you really don't. 2 days a week is enough. And especially for riders, if you're only going 2 days a week, going something like a full body workout versus like an upper body day and a lower body day is going to make it a lot easier for you to recover so that you can still get back out there on your bike and it won't impact your time in the saddle quite as much.
Yeah, and I guess like for you personally, right? Like mountain biking is an intimidating sport. You get up, like you're not sure what gear to have, you're not sure what you're gonna like what trail you're gonna hit. You show up and everyone's got like the nicest gear and you're just like, I'm kind of like an imposter here, what am I doing? right? But like, how have you developed your confidence with mountain biking and getting into it? And then like, how does that translate to you helping other people find that confidence too?
Honestly, for me, it was doing more with the community, which it's like that thing that scares you, right? It's the thing you don't want to do because you're just exactly like you said, you're scared you're going to show up and feel like you don't know what you're talking about or like a total noob. But the thing about the mountain biking community is that they don't give a shit. Like they're just stoked that you're there. They just are so happy to have another person along for the ride or somebody else getting stoked on bikes. And that is so cool to me. Like the fact that you can show up to a group ride and you can have people from, 18 to, or younger, depending if their parents bring them, younger to 60, and they're all riding somewhat in the same level. And it's just, that's so cool to me how inclusive the community is. So my best advice would be like, don't get scared, seek out your community in your area, find the people that are riding. And if the people that you find are assholes, find different people. Because there are people out there that want you to come along and join on the ride, and they are happy to show you the ropes, wait for you on the uphill or the downhill. Nobody cares how fast or slow you are. Like, again, everybody's just stoked to be on bikes. So um getting out there and doing more group rides was pivotal for me gaining my confidence on the bike, actually, and just helped me realize that I was kind of progressing exactly how I was supposed to.
No, I
if
love,
there
yeah,
if
that's
there is a supposed to.
for sure. Yeah, no, for sure. And that's solid advice too, right? Like I if the people around you are jerks, yeah, just find new people. Like I love that.
A
Yeah,
hundred
absolutely.
percent. Because I'm not, there are people who, and I don't want to say they're jerks just because they're taking the sport seriously, but maybe they just have different goals than you, right? Maybe they are trying to race and improve their time, and they aren't going to want to wait for you. And that doesn't mean that they're an a-hole or a jerk. They're just maybe not the right group for you right now. So
Yeah. Yeah, and everyone's got to get their, King of the Mountain Strava to best time or whatever. You just if you want to do that, go ahead, right? But the rest of you that just want to chill and ride, like that's the best part about the group ride and the community. I love that, just connecting to it, and for sure they
yeah,
just help you feel so included.
I always say that at the beginning of every group ride that I lead. I'm like, hey, this isn't if you're out here to get like a QOM, this isn't the ride for you. Like, do that on your own time. We're like doing a social pace. It's usually when people lead group rides, they're pretty upfront about what you should expect on the ride too. And if they say a no drop ride, like they're not going to leave you behind. So,
Yeah, no, that's awesome.
which
So with some
actually, funny story, when I
yeah,
first went on my first no drop ride, for like the first year I was riding, I thought that meant that there were no drops on the ride, like as in trail features.
yeah. Tell us what the no drop is.
It just means that they're not going to leave you behind. They're not going to like speed off and leave you waiting somewhere lost looking for the rest of the group. It means the group stays as a group.
Nice. Yep. No one's dropped behind.
Yeah.
Now you're probably hitting just major drops, right? You're dropping those cliffs now, right? After all this confidence and all this strength you've been building up.
Yeah, that's actually drops. I prefer drops to jumps. I don't know why, but I had been progressing pretty well with my drops and jumping. I was starting to progress with before my injury, but I am determined to get back to that point and continue progressing. So,
Yeah. What's this injury that you had? Did you do that skiing?
well, no, I was skiing the morning before I broke it, but
Oh,
it was a multi-sport day. We went up to ski for like the last spring ski of the season, and then up in Flagstaff, there's a bike park called Fort Tuthill Bike Park, and it's just like jump lines, pump tracks, features, stuff to practice on. And I was riding one of them like medium-sized jump lines. I was on not my bike, I was on my boyfriend's dirt jumper, which probably wasn't a great idea. But honestly, I cleared 3 tabletops, and I was turning around to go back up to the start pad and washed out on completely flat ground. And like, I don't, it just happened perfectly. I think the bike slid into my leg, and I broke my tibia in 2 places, my fibula in one place, and had a like non-displaced hairline in my malleolus, which is part of the ankle.
And this was just recent, right? This is like a couple months ago.
Yeah, it was May 6th. And it was actually funny because at the hospital, the doctor was like, this is way more of a typical of a skiing injury than a mountain biking injury. And I was like, well, funny enough, I was skiing before I was mountain biking.
Oh man. Oh, that's the worst. I'm sorry. That's one thing that I messaged you when you posted a couple of your stories of like just your rehab process. I know exactly how that goes when you're just stuck in a boot and you're just feeling like you can't move or do anything, but then all of a sudden you jump on the exercise bike during physical therapy, and it's just gold, right? It feels so
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, that first day, I was not anticipating her to say I was going to be able to get on the bike that day. I've made my PT cry like probably 3 times because she's a sympathetic crier and I am an emotional person. So I was like, I crying happy tears, and she's like, "You're gonna make me cry." It was great. I was so stoked to be back on, even though I am not like a stationary bike person, but even then I was just very excited to be back on some type of bike.
Oh yeah, no, and that's again like for me too. I dislike stationary bikes as well, but for those few months and when that's what I could do, there's something about just that bilateral moving back and forth that it just brings peace to my mind. Even if you're just sitting there, it's definitely not the same having the wind in your hair and everything else, but just something about it just feels so good.
Absolutely. And I mean, I even tried swimming before, and I used to be a swimmer. I was on the swim team in high school and like grew up swimming, but it just wasn't. I mean, it was still good, but it wasn't the same, even as being on like a stationary bike with zero resistance.
Yeah. Yeah. So, like, how have you, during this whole process, right? I mean, you're still kind of a little bit immobile right now. How have you been able to get through the grind of your rehab and just where you're at mentally?
The mental heart part has been the harder struggle. Um, ups and downs, lots of ups and downs. I had a few weeks there where I was like really struggling. When all your coping mechanisms and all your tools that you've built are for your mental health are active. I mean, I do meditate, but I had definitely, and actually, it's funny. That's what I started doing a lot during COVID. I remembered after you asked me that that's something that I did. So I did kind of have to revert back to some of my other coping mechanisms that aren't quite as active. But I'm pushing through. I've been able to luckily still get back in the gym. I think I was only out of the gym for like 2 weeks, and that was just mainly because I didn't want to be, on on pain meds and trying to like carry weights around. And I was like, I'm gonna hurt myself further, like, increase my recovery time. So luckily, I've still been able to do a lot of stuff, and honestly, I'm grateful that my recovery time's not longer. I've had a lot of conversations with a lot of people who have had injuries, similar or not, that off bike way longer. So I'm grateful. The situation always could be worse, right?
Yeah, no, it absolutely puts things in perspective, right? I mean, it still sucks. It's still a hard thing to go through when you're in it, but then, yeah, you hear other stories and you're like, okay, my situation's not that bad.
Yeah. 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 You never want to like discount your own struggle because it is very real, but perspective is always key.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So when are you able to get back on the bike?
Hopefully, I mean, as soon as I can walk and put full weight on my leg, without any pain. So hopefully, like 4 weeks ish, but
Cool.
time will tell. So
Yeah. Yeah, you don't want to rush it for sure, but I think, just that's exciting that there's a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel here, right?
yeah, yeah. Well, and I told him, telling a mountain biker to let pain be your guide. That's kind of a dangerous thing to say. Like, well, there's levels to that. What would they're like, no pain at all. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, that's boring.
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt.
But
Well,
we're good.
yeah, no, I wish you a speedy recovery. I know that again while you're through it. And the hardest thing for me is just like you're talking about the community and everything. When you're not part of that community, that's can be like the hardest part mentally coming going through an injury or rehab. You're not around the people that you're normally around or doing the activities you do with them, right? Like that's gotta be a struggle too for you.
Yeah, I don't know if you experienced this with your injury at all. I've talked to again a lot of people, and I've like done a little bit of research on athlete injury stuff, and since my injury, just kind of curiosity, and it seems as though a lot of athletes or high functioning people, when they have an injury like this, they do tend to go through almost like some type of identity crisis. Like, who am I without my sport, without my activities? So definitely experienced that a little bit. And I think if I would have been down any longer than I am or was, that would have been a way, way bigger factor. So yeah, I don't know. How long were you out with your injury?
Yeah, no, I absolutely relate to that. I mean, my injuries were kind of weird. I had a really bad ankle injury a year ago that I was out for a few months on, and then I rehabbed from that. But then right when I got back into playing sports again, playing basketball, I tore my ACL again. And so then I was out for, it's been 8 months since then. So I'm
Oh, wow.
finally getting back into riding more with my cousins and my friends and stuff. I'm still kind of like going back and forth mentally about returning back to playing basketball because it's just like, is this really worth it? But it's the community, it's the people, it's that identity that you're like, I don't want to give that up. But
Yeah.
you just have to kind of learn to modify it and adjust your expectations and adjust your, the way you do things a little bit. And you can still, that's what I'm kind of dealing with now is just like, okay, how can I still do this, but do it a little more, calculated, a little more smart. So
Yeah, a little more safely. Yeah, that's
yeah,
right. People are like, when are you going to get back on the bike? And I'm like, well, I don't know what back on the bike is going to look like. I'm sure a couple of weeks will just be like me riding around my neighborhood and like on grass. I don't think I'm just going to jump back onto the trails just because I don't, I don't know what to anticipate. Maybe I'm just expecting that so that if I can't jump back on the trails mentally, I'm prepared for it.
yeah, no, for sure. And I think, but that's what I love about the biking process is, I mean, there's so many different levels to it, right? Like you said, just if you're just riding around the neighborhood, like you can get still such a good benefit mentally and
Yeah.
physically just of just cruising around, like what it can do for your
Like you
mind and
said,
your
it's the
emotions.
wind in your hair.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you just feel so young and just cruising around like a little kid. And that's one thing I loved about your kind of your bio and your approach that I was reading about is that was one of your goals, right? And your missions is to like help people to be able to ride into their old age. Cause I think that a lot
Yeah.
of people, they think they have to give something up that they love, but you can make modifications and adjustments and do things so you can continue to reap those benefits.
Yeah, for sure. And man, there's a and I'm kind of upset at myself because I cannot remember her name, and I know that she's fairly well known in like the mountain biking community here in Phoenix. But she's an older lady. She's well into her 60s, and she's still ripping down double blacks. Like she's nuts. Well, not nuts, but she's just still living the mountain biking life, and you see people online doing that all the time. So at some point, minus physical limitations and having to, take your health into account, age is somewhat of a construct. So that's inspiring to see again how like far you can take mountain biking and how it can be a part of your life forever, really.
Yeah, no, I absolutely. I think there's trails for everybody, right? There's, like
Yeah.
you said, the double black diamonds, there's the easy green, flowy, just or like kind of gravel trails. You can find whatever you're looking for, which is so fun.
Well, and that's the other thing I love about like the community is they really promote the idea that like you don't have to be ripping down double blacks to be considered a mountain biker. You are a mountain biker on the flowy greens. So you're still on. If you're on a bike, you're on the mountain. You're on a trail. You're a mountain biker. Like whether you're even riding it well or not yet.
Right. Yeah, no, absolutely. That's again, yeah, and you're just a part of that community, which is so rad. I love it.
And something that was actually happened has or we're starting to work on. A friend of mine reached out after my injury, and I've been surprised. I don't want to say surprised, but impressed with how supportive my community has been around me and how many people have reached out. Because it's like you said, you're part of that community, and then you're not showing up. So it's like, are you still a part of the community? But so many people have reached out, and I actually had a friend even start a GoFundMe for a an adaptive bike, but it's like for the canals. But for we're trying to raise money for the community. So to have as a community bike that is going to be housed at potentially like a bike shop So when somebody in our community is injured and they're off bike, it's something that they can still use to get outside and get active, because it's so important for your mental health. So that was something really cool that came out of this as well. And I'm excited to, keep working towards obtaining.
Oh yeah, that's super cool. What a great idea. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So
Thank you. I was,
with yeah, no, I love that. Just one last or a couple last questions for you. I've been mountain biking for, quite a few years. I kind of grew up doing some BMXing, some mountain biking, and I've gotten back into it a lot more recently. And I got my wife into mountain biking. She's been loving it too. But again, it's kind of that confidence piece, right? Um, we've had 3 kids, and getting back into mountain biking, postpartum. I'm curious if you ever work a lot with women in that situation. Like, how was that getting back into riding?
So I actually haven't personally worked with any women who are getting back to riding postpartum. I've worked with women postpartum getting back to lifting,
Hmm.
but that's something that I actually am hoping to obtain more education on in the coming years, because I do see that as a need. I've come across a lot of women who are in that same position. So I don't, want to speak outside of my scope. I don't have any major information on that, but I am sure there are tons of resources out there. I wish I had somebody specifically to point you to. But hey, that just tells me even more that there's a need for it, right?
Yeah, no, yeah, and I appreciate it. I think, just getting back into strength training too. That's one thing that we've kind of recognized is that, you know, having kids it does a number on your body, and that's one thing I respect as my wife has gone through birth so much, because I'm like, if you were to tell me to have an ACL surgery multiple times, I've had 2, and they were the worst experience of my life. Like, they were terrible, and so
Right.
for a woman to sign up and say, yeah, I'm going to wreck my body for this kid and do it multiple times and then have to
Yeah.
recover and rehab from that. Like, again, my respect for mothers of the world has just gone up so much because of that.
Oh,
But
absolutely. There's a reason I've chosen that route for myself, but I am with you 100% on that. I see, especially a lot of, way off topic, but how our society kind of treats women and children, or approaches motherhood as in like, you chose it, too bad, figure it out. It's like that mothers are expected to do it all and then some, and have very little support. So I'm
yeah,
glad that sounds like you're very supportive of your wife through the process. So that's great.
no, yeah. And it's like you said, it's a process for sure, but it's so cool to see the strength and like the resilience that these moms can teach their kids, right? And so then like it just teaches the next generation that those same skills, which is amazing. And so it's been cool to kind of go through that process. But it's just like rehab and anything else. It takes patience, it takes time, and like the strength training, getting back into it, and then the writing. So no,
Yeah.
I think that's cool. I think, yeah, that's one thing I would. I mean, I'm not going to tell you to run your business or anything, but
Right.
I think
Well,
there's definitely a need for it, right?
yeah. Ironically, I have another coach who works for. So my company is called FNG, or Fitness Nutrition Growth, and my other coach, Jana, who works with me, she works with postpartum moms specifically with strength training. Um, so I do have a very good resource for the strength training aspect. Yes, I do have the knowledge myself, but typically I outsource to her because that's her specialty. But I would love to. I wish she mountain biked. Like, we got to get her on a mountain bike and get her into it, and then maybe she would.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, yeah, you got to start somewhere, right? Just like the
Yeah.
nice, easy stuff, and you get into it. So, no, that's super cool. And again, I admire the stuff that you're doing to help progress the sport, and to most importantly, just to help, um, increase the confidence of the riders out there, specifically the female riders, because I think that that's such a huge need for a lot of people that want to ride and get out there and enjoy the community. So, I mean, you've given a lot of great advice during this podcast, but any other like last advice that you'd give on someone just thinking about getting into mountain biking, or thinking about getting into strength training or nutrition or anything else? Like, where would you? I mean, I would definitely point them towards you, but what other advice would you kind of give
Yeah,
them?
they come on into my DMs. I'd be happy to help you. I have 3 call slots available next week for anybody who's interested in doing a strategy call. So if you have specific questions about strength and nutrition coaching, you can find me on Instagram at steph.mcmillan or at my website, which will you can find my Instagram through my website or email me. But the website is www.teamfng.page. But if you're just looking for some general information and you don't have specific questions or want to go in depth or connect with me at this time, I would say realistically just picking one thing and mastering that at a time. So let's learn about protein. Just spend the month focusing on learning about protein, eating more protein, what food is protein. If it doesn't take you a month to master it, great. If it only takes you 2 weeks, that's awesome. Pick another new thing and incorporate that. But don't overwhelm yourself and think that you have to do it all. And that goes for mountain biking too. Like, just pick a bike and get out on the trails, and then, don't necessarily buy one. Maybe go to a bike shop and demo one and just try riding a bike, and see if you like it. Just get involved somehow with the community. Get on a bike, get on a ride, just try it.
I love that. Yeah. And a lot of times that's the hardest step, right? That the cliche term, the first step is often the hardest one. We think that it's so much effort, but I love that you say, just try one little thing, right? And then it leads to those other things. So great.
Yeah. You start taking care of yourself. You're going to see the benefits, and you're going to feel better, and you're going to see it, crossing over to your riding and your time on the trail. And it is naturally going to motivate you to keep implementing more healthier things. So.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, awesome, Stephanie. This is a great conversation. I appreciate you taking some time again and talking with me. And I wish you well in your rehab and your business and everything. And I'll continue to follow you. And if you're ever up here in the Utah area, hit us up, and we'd love to take you guys out for a ride.
Yeah, I rode in Utah last summer, and I've been dying to get back there and kind of reclaim myself a little bit since I've made a little more progress. But once I'm recovered, definitely Utah is in my future. So same to you. If you're ever in Phoenix, be happy to show you around our trails out here. They're a lot different than they are in Utah, but they're a lot of fun.
No, I kind of love that, desert flowy cross country riding. I think there's something just peaceful about being out in the desert. It's beautiful.
Yeah, it's definitely a different style. Lots of loose kitty litter and pretty chunky, but it can be a little intimidating riding past cactus. That was probably my first mental block I had to overcome.
Yeah, no doubt. Just don't bail near the cactus, and you'll be fine.
Yeah, it's a good time though. Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well, thanks again, Stephanie, and we'll chat in the future. But have a good day.
Yeah. Thanks, Zach. Have a good day.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.
All right. Again, a big thanks to Stephanie for jumping on this week's session. What a great conversation that was. I hope that you guys felt her energy and her drive to really helping female riders become more confident. I love that that's kind of her mission right now, because again, I think when we start to develop that confidence, it just really helps us enjoy the things that we do a lot more, and we're able to approach things easier. A couple of things that really stood out to me as we had this conversation is I loved how her boyfriend just said that line of, well, not with that attitude, it won't, right? Like, sometimes you never know where you get this bit of advice from. It could just be a random statement that you hear, but how it can completely change your perspective and your mindset to things. So, on a therapeutic level, I've had people say something to me that they didn't intend for it to go one way or the other, but that's the way that I took it. And maybe you've had that situation happen as well. So again, those just little statements that help us open our mind to different possibilities. And again, just the whole idea of building confidence up, and how, our nutrition, the things we're feeding our bodies, the things that we're doing to strengthen our bodies and our minds can just help us in so many areas, and how that can help us with biking and just with everything in life. I remember reading something somewhere that made me laugh. It was like, the best upgrade you can do on your mountain bike or road bike is doing squats, like working out your legs, putting in that time, putting in that effort. But a lot of times we don't want to do those things because it takes effort, it takes work, it takes planning, it takes that dedication, when really we just would rather pay a lot of money to have, the nicest, lightest thing. But really that's not what's going to help you the most. The biggest thing is going to making sure that you're doing what you can for yourself in those moments. So whether it's biking or any other aspect of your life, of recognizing what you can improve on, researching about it and going through and following through with that. And sometimes we need some accountability. We need a coach to be there with us. And so again, that's what's awesome. What Stephanie's doing is to really help people get back into it. So if you know somebody that's interested in getting into riding, specifically, female riders, mountain bikers, or they're a little bit scared, reach out to Stephanie. I think that she is an awesome resource to get people, to get female riders out on the trail and enjoying the sport. So awesome conversation. Okay, again, I'd like to appreciate, or just say I appreciate everyone listening, sharing this with your friends, with your family, with anyone that you know that is thinking about getting into riding, or that wants to get into riding, or that they ride themselves. It's been great. I've enjoyed all the responses that I've been getting. So again, appreciate it, and just keep at it. Let's ride this out.